guys, it is I, the Concrete Catwalk, and I am back. So before we get into today's topic, I want to say welcome to those of you who are brand new to my channel. I am a reseller. I have my closet, ConcreteCatwalk, which is on POSHMARK. You can head over there and check out my closet. Those of you who are returning, my catwalkers, thank you. I love you all. Please, if you have any questions about anything that is in my closet that you'd be interested in and you see on Poshmark, please head over to Instagram. I am the Catwalks Concrete on Instagram. Please feel free to DM me if there is anything that you see that you'd like to have. Send me a message and we can talk about it and you can get it before somebody else does. So, that being said, today we are going to talk about vintage and 7 strong, I almost want to call them commandments, 7 rules when it comes to vintage. And this is not even just going to the thrift store and trying to find it, but it's anywhere related to yard sales, flea markets, you name it. Before we get into it, oh, that is so good. Vintage is a funny thing. It is literally everywhere. When it comes down to looking for vintage or vintage pieces, you know, whatever it is that you may be into, shoes, handbags, and the like, recognize that the world is a vintage store. And by saying that, I mean, I don't care if it's a garage sale, if it's grandma's attic, if it is a situation where, you know, you go into a place and you don't necessarily expect that there's going to be something there. Meaning, for instance, I'll use Pennsylvania as an example. There's a place up there called Renninger's, and it is a whole antique plethora of things. And they also do vintage clothes. And the most unexpected things ever have come out of that environment. So I say that to say this. That is number 1 on the list of vintage must-dos, is look at the world from a perspective of vintage is everywhere. So when you go someplace and you're looking for certain items, pay attention to where you're at, because literally that particular place, that garage sale, that open air market could have one of the most or some of the most amazing things that you ever come across. And along with that is keeping an open mind as you go into wherever to look. So when you're in places like that, you know, one of the best things to do is look at everything. Like when you're looking at a book, you know, you leaf through the pages, but I'm saying, you know, turn each page, turn over everything, because you might find that killer, you know, vintage Chanel sweater, whatever it may be, you know, just by simply moving things and turning things over and then making the discovery of, oh my God, I didn't even know that was there. So take your time, look around, look at everything, especially if it's like a smaller venue and you have the opportunity to literally go through everything. Do it. Because again, the most amazing things usually come about when you're looking for whatever it may be. I think that for me, one of the biggest things that I had to realize, especially in the vintage side of things, because that's where my heart lies, is I like things that are from another lifespan versus what you would buy contemporary. And that's no disrespect to contemporary clothes, no disrespect to it whatsoever. I'm just saying, for me, I prefer items that have a serious history, where they can literally tell a story and you don't even have to say anything. All you have to do is put it on and it literally takes on a life of its own and can do all of that for you. But when you're looking at things and something is there, don't ever say no. Meaning, don't just dismiss it and you have not had a chance to look at it. You haven't had a chance to try to figure out if you could integrate it possibly into, you know, your collection. If, you know, a buyer out there might be interested in it, because it's almost like looking at a house. the bones of it are so good, and there's so much potential. It may need a little bit of help, but in a sense, it has everything there, foundation-wise, to be a part of something tremendous, in your wardrobe, or a piece of your wardrobe. So when it comes down to vintage, people can be a little bit finicky about it, because let's be real, vintage is very hard. It's hard because the size of people was different back then. Cut was the cut, and you didn't have what you have today, where you've got, the elastines, and you've got the spandexes. And again, that is not a knock to any of that. But clothes from another era, or eras gone by, were cut specific to measurement, which is why people are so tempted to, a lot of the times, pass on it, because of the fact that it is challenging. But I think that if you go in and you're armed with how you fit, or an ideal about how it will fit, in terms of being able to better translate, if this is going to work for them, this particular piece, whatever it may be, vintage, is it going to work for them? And I think that's the biggest thing with it, is being able to translate, is it going to work for someone else, or if it's going to work for you, if you're interested. Look at it from a standpoint where the item has potential, and build from there. I think one of the biggest things too, when it comes down to vintage clothes, the overall time frame that I've had in resale, but specifically the resale of vintage, it is important to focus on eras. You have to look at everything. It's not just about the 60s or the 70s, or it's not just about the 30s and the 40s and the 50s. It's not just about the 90s. It's all of this, all of it. Literally, you can feel like, I want to be 90s queen one day, and I want to be, the 50s, Leave It to Beaver look another, and that's perfectly fine. But focus on an era, or focus on eras that are of interest to you, and then build from there, because I think that's what makes a healthy resale closet in vintage, is when you have a variety of eras that you can offer to those who would be interested in it, or that you may be interested in. I don't limit myself to just being stuck into one particular genre or a like. I think it's important to have a wide variety, just like you would have a wide variety in your personal wardrobe. Have a wide variety in your resale wardrobe, so that people can come in and they can take a look and they can make a decision. And it allows for you as a reseller to have a broad scope of options to offer all different types of people and what they may be interested in purchasing. So keep that in mind. I think one of the biggest things that myself, I'll say me, as a seller, has had to come and realize, when you're in this business of collecting things, looking for things to resell, specifically when it comes down to clothing and vintage clothing, don't go nuts. Don't just because it may look like an ideal purchase, something that you think you might be able to turn over. Sometimes it's better to just leave things where they are. Sometimes it's better to just, especially if you don't have the feeling about, oh, maybe I can, work with this item. Sometimes it's better to just leave things alone. Just say no. Don't go nuts. Don't go overboard. Maybe pick a few pieces, a couple of dresses, from a particular era, or from a particular style standpoint. Maybe it's a vintage A-line cut. Who knows? But don't go crazy. Just pick certain things and try and see. Because I will say this, vintage, if you're not careful, can be a very hard sell. And what I find is that vintage items will move, but they typically have a little bit longer shelf life of attempting to sell than something that's a little bit more of current fashion. Not unless you have someone or persons who are specifically targeted to wanting items of a certain scope, or a certain year, or certain, you get the point. So just don't go nuts. Just have some things, look at the fact that if they can move, great. But yeah, it's very easy to go haywire, especially when there's an abundance of something somewhere and you feel like you might miss out on getting certain pieces. But no, it's going to be always there to get. It might be a little bit harder to find, but it will be there to get. So don't go nuts. One of the things that I've had to definitely learn with older pieces is when you get it, a lot of the times vintage items are not necessarily the cleanest, and I think it's important to wash that stuff, because you don't know where it's been, you don't know who had it. It might have been closet, kept in a bag, whatever. Clean it. And then when you clean it again. When I find things, I typically go to work and clean, unless it's something where there is an exception where I get it cleaned and I know that it's going to have a unfortunate built-in stain that's not going to go anywhere, you know, and you let folks know, hey, look, this is there, it is what it is. However, if it can be washed, I'm going to wash it. If it can be dry cleaned, I'm going to get it dry cleaned. Anything that's going to curtail smells, odors, or surface stains, because sometimes those things do come out. But yeah, please, laundry, rinse, repeat, clean the stuff. When you're looking for vintage items, when you're looking for pieces that are gonna make a statement, or so you think might make a statement, or be, you know, something that you can move, work with, sell, however you want to call it, you better be ready to be wrong. I can't tell you the amount of times that I've found or sourced things and I was 100% totally wrong. Whether it was for me, whether it was for my business to sell, you've got to accept the fact that with vintage, it could go really right or it could go really to the left wrong. When it comes down to looking for vintage and all of the things that clothes of a certain era have to offer, I think the above all is the individuality that they allow for people in terms of not looking like everyone else. And that adds to the ability to be individual in what your style is going to look like or what you want it to look like. And I also think that it allows for the serious ability to learn mixing and matching different periods. It is an amazing thing. I have seen people do some really super beautiful things with items that you just wouldn't even have imagined would meld together the way that they did. And that is why I respect and love vintage so much, is because of the fact that if you follow some of the things that I suggested, you'll be able to effectively go out and make the determination for those things that you want to add to your resale closet, your online business. When it comes down to vintage items and pieces, you know, it's okay to be selective. It's okay to be selective, but understand that you want to make sure that going in, you have an open mind, and then it allows you to make better decisions about what it is you'd like to add to your sales items. So anyway, this I think was a very calm video, honey. I'm happy. But anyway, let me know what your thoughts are. Let's talk about it. You know, what do you do if you specifically source vintage for your resale business, your online business, or it's just a portion or a fraction of your business like mine is. Mine is a mix of things. But let me know what you found. Let me know what your thoughts are. What do you do, you know, when you go outsourcing looking for vintage pieces? How do you make determinations about what you're going to add? What do you do? I just want to say thank you all for watching, and I will see you next Sunday. Please do these 3 things. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Tap that bell so that you can receive notifications. I post videos weekly, every Sunday. And also, go on over to Instagram and follow me there. Feel free to reach out and leave me questions, comments, whatever you'd like. And for IG side, I am the Catwalk's Concrete. And for the POSHMARK closet, I am ConcreteCatwalk. So, thank you all. We'll see you next week. Bye.